task force meeting, we have come to the point in our time together where we're starting to work on recommendations again. So you've made it. You've made it through one round of recommendations to the second round of recommendations. So appreciate all the time and energy that folks have put into this. This is our 17th meeting, believe it or not. Kimber knows how much I like to keep track of that number, so she makes sure I know what number we're on. What we're going to do first is we're going to go through roll call and attendance, and I'm going to say we've got lots of folks from the public participating, which we very much appreciate. This is a task force meeting, though, so task force members will be interacting and talking. We have time for public comment at the end of our session here today. I ask everybody to be good about the mute. I will try to be good about the mute too. I'm going to apologize right now because my dog likes to let people know when they're driving by. So let's go ahead first and do attendance and roll call. I'm also going to ask if you could please identify your location. There's been a change to the Open Meetings Act that asks us to also record where people are calling in from. So thank you for doing that. I just like it because I like to know where everybody's at. So I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself. So for those of you who don't know me, Liesl Clark, Director of Michigan's Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. And for the purposes of a couple of minutes until I hand it off, our fearless leader for a little bit. So first, we'll go through roll call. So I'm going to go to our fantastic vice chairperson, Mike Prusi. Are you with us, Senator? All right, I did not see Mike on the line when I skimmed before, so we'll loop back and check once I get all the way through. Tanya Pozlowski.
I am here calling from East Lansing, Michigan.
Thanks, Tanya. Chris Bowman. I'm going to wait a second because sometimes Chris is on the phone to see if he has to get off mute. He said he was going to try to video with us. Chris Bowman? Okay, we'll loop back there too. Dave Camps.
Here from Hancock, Michigan.
Great. Thank you, Dave. Mike Fermansky.
Here in Escanaba, Michigan.
Thanks, Mike. Jen Hill.
I am here in snow-kissed South Marquette, Michigan.
Nice. Poetic as well. Douglas Jester.
I'm here in East Lansing, Michigan.
Great. Thanks, Douglas. Aaron Johnson.
Good morning, Director. Here, and I'm in Howell, Michigan.
Great. Thank you, Aaron. I suppose I should have said I'm in Howell, Michigan. Sorry, Kimber. Put that on the record. Jim Kachiver.
Good morning, all. I'm here in Ishpeming, Michigan.
Great. How much snow you got, Jim?
Next to none, just a dusting.
Okay. Michael Larson.
Here in Marquette, Michigan.
Hi, Michael. The third Mike of the apocalypse, Mike Nystrom. Fourth Mike.
I am here, and I'm the third person from East Lansing.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Tony, where did I see you? I lost you on my screen. Where are you, Tony?
I'm here. Good morning, Director. I'm calling from downtown Marquette, Michigan.
Great. Thank you, Tony. Let's see. General Rogers. All right. I think he's busy distributing vaccines or something. Sherman Scripps.
Good morning, Director. I am here and I am in the village of Northport.
Would you like to chime in with your snow total?
We probably have 3 or 4 inches, but it's the first snow of the season. It's nice.
Roman. Do we hit?
Good morning, everyone. Reporting from Houghton Portage Township. Current snow accumulation is between 3 and 4 inches as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Roman. Chris Schwartz. Are you with us, President Schwartz? Okay, and Tanya Sweener.
Here in Marquette.
Great, Tanya. I got to get a headset. Your sound quality is excellent. All right, I'm going to loop back to see if we have General Rogers, Chris Bowman, or Mike Prusi. All righty, we're going to go forward then. All right, thanks, everybody. Okay, so what do we have in front of us today? So you have an agenda that's largely task force work. So what we wanted to work on today, as you saw from email a couple of days ago, was really to do a recap of what we've heard over the last few meetings since we picked up to broaden our scope across the Upper Peninsula in the spring. So we're going to do a recap of what we've heard, and then we've brought public sector back to help us synthesize and pull the recommendations out of the discussion. So we're going to go through an exercise today to pull out what you heard and try to start cataloging things so that we've got a starting point for recommendations that we'll bring back to all of you for your input. What we also think is a possibility in the course of the conversation today, as we talk through recommendations, would be additional presentations or more materials that are necessary to get us to the outcome of a draft of recommendations to the administration. So I'll hand it off to public sector in just a couple of minutes to take us through that exercise. But before I do that, I just wanted to open it up and see if there's any question. Oh, and then we'll switch to public comments around noon. I know we have a lot of folks participating from the public on the call, so thank you for being here. Again, if you all could just stay muted, you'll have your chance to talk at noon. And Kimber had the slide up earlier. You can send an email to us that you want to talk, or once we get to that noon point, you can raise your hand, etc., virtually. Before we bring the agenda forward, though, I just wanted to see if we have any questions on that draft agenda that you should have received on the 8th. Questions or discussion on our draft agenda? All right, then I'd like to ask for a motion and a second to put the agenda in front of us.
So moved, Madam Chair. Ratajski.
Thanks, Ratajski.
Second, Scripps.
Thank you, Scripps. Any discussion on the agenda? Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Great, thank you. Now we're going to move over to minutes. If you recall, we did not have the minutes in front of you from October for our last meeting. So you have two sets of minutes. You should have the October minutes and the November minutes that you received on the 11th. So first, let's bring the October minutes in front of us. So do I have a motion and second to put the October minutes in front of us?
So moved, Nystrom.
Thank you.
Second for Mansky.
Second, Jester.
Okay, we'll go Mike and Mike just because it's fun there. Any discussion on the October minutes? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Great, thank you. And now we'll move to the November minutes. Motion to put it in front of us in a second.
So moved, Nystrom.
Moved. Yeah. Second, Jester.
Great. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposition to the November minutes? Great, thanks everybody. So now we're gonna move over to upcoming dates. So we've put a schedule in front of you for our 2021 gatherings. We've put 4 meetings on the calendar. I think it's possible that we don't need all of these, but we just wanted to carve the time out ahead of time to make sure that we had the opportunity to get together to make sure that everyone felt comfortable with what we're preparing. So you should have received these dates on the 8th. It sounds like we did not receive concerns with them. So right now we're scheduled for Monday, January 11th, 9 to 11:30, Wednesday, February 24th, 1 to 3:30, Wednesday, March 3rd from 2:30 to 5, and then Tuesday, March 16th from 1 to 3:30. So once you all have approved this calendar for 2021, we'll get this information up on the on our website so that it's available to the public as well. So can I have a motion and a second to put our 2021 calendar in front of us?
I'll move,
So
Tanya.
moved.
Tanya
Second.
and Jen, second, thank you. Any discussion or concerns with our proposed calendar for 2021? All right, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposition? Great. Thanks, everybody. So if we're on 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, let's see if we can get it done in 20, right? All right, that'll be our goal. All right. Again, I can't say how much I appreciate the great work of this whole team. You all have been spending a lot of time and giving of your expertise and wisdom. As we transition over to recommendations, we're going to start off by our secretary, Tanya Pozlowski, is going to go back and recap what we've heard over the last few sessions. I know it feels like we get together regularly. I certainly enjoy the chance to see all your smiling faces. But when we go back to think about what did we hear in May, what did we hear in April, sometimes it gets a little fuzzy. So Tanya's going to give us a recap as a starting point, and then we'll transition over to the exercise the public sector is going to moderate to help us work through our recommendations. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Tanya Pozlowski. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. You should have received an outline that I emailed this morning to the group just to give you something to follow as I go through this. And so there's some more detail in here than I think we need to necessarily discuss. But as Liesl noted, I was also reminded of a lot of some of the detail of the things in particular that we've discussed that helped me think about some additional items that I hadn't thought about when we, had discussed or had the discussion about recommendations last time. So I thought that this was a useful exercise and hope that you do as well. So I'm just going to go through in chronological order again, following that outline to do an overview of each of the meetings. So on our first meeting, May 12th, the Public Service Commission and Kathy Cole gave us really a broader overview of the energy picture in the Upper Peninsula, focusing primarily on electricity and just covering the number of providers we have, what type of utilities they are, generation mix, some of the changing aspects of that generation mix, touching on transmission, grid issues, and then touching on home heating and natural gas. Since our first focus was propane, natural gas has not been a significant part of our discussion, but that was covered in that initial meeting with that the Public Service Commission presented. So I don't know if there's anything, as we go, certainly in preparing the report, we're going to want to have some even briefer description than what we have here of what we've covered as a group. Before I move on to the next meeting, does anyone see anything that should have been captured here that wasn't about that overview? Okay, if something does come up as we go, please jump in so we make sure that we have at least a decent record of what was covered.
Hey, Tanya, it's Liesl.
Yeah.
So one note that I made to myself from that May meeting that actually was a comment you made was thinking about line miles per customer for our utilities in the Upper Peninsula. And your comment there was, I think, sort of framing for me as we then went into the future meeting. So anyway, just wanted to point out that that was one of the things that stands out to me in my notes from the May meeting.
Thanks. That is a helpful point of reference. And maybe something we can, if we didn't pull it together, something that maybe we can try to include. Okay, the next meeting on June 9th was really focused on the transmission portion. And so we had a representative from ATC that provides the transmission service in the Upper Peninsula with just a description of what their service territory looks like, what their investment history has been. And then there was a brief discussion as well, just getting a sense of MISO and how it works. I believe we covered its role in planning and what which parts of Michigan are in the MISO footprint. So that was a very, much bigger picture transmission focused meeting. So I don't hear anything. I'm going to move on to July 15th. Again, if folks have thoughts as we go, since you can see the outline as I get to the end of that, please feel free to jump in. So July 15th, we began a discussion about the types of utilities with some examples of those providers in Michigan. So Mike Formansky gave us a description of municipal electric utilities overall and what their role is, how they are structured and governed, and pointing to the joint action agencies that help them pool resources to provide typically generation service, but can be other services as well. We had Marquette do a description just of that municipal itself, so that we had a better understanding of how they serve customers, and from that standpoint of a local utility. And then UPCO presented representing the investor-owned community and obviously describing their service territory and some of the evolution that had taken place there in terms of generation mix and what the rate picture looked like. Obviously, there have been discussions about UPCO's rates, and I know highlighting that we have a difference, and this came out in the first meeting with the Public Service Commission, but I know UPCO addresses as well of there being residential and commercial customers that might be a little higher than the state as a whole, but that industrial rates there are low and customer bills tend to be low. But that covers the investor-owned utilities. And then in the next meeting on September 14th, we also covered the co-ops, and Cloverland came in and gave us an overview of the role of the cooperative utilities in the state, and specifically Cloverland, that obviously covers a significant part of the Upper Peninsula. So I'll maybe stop there before we go into the next section. Just, is there anything missing on the descriptions of the types of utilities or our presenters and the examples they gave of their particular utilities?
Tanya,
I have a question, Madam Chair. Jen Hill. The question of the connection to Wisconsin seems important to me, but so it says in the May 12th meeting that we have 27% of generation is imports for electricity, but I think it's much high. Some utilities it's 100% and others it's less. And I just wonder how that, I truly don't quite understand how that may impact what we may be able to recommend going forward. And I wondered if that's a placeholder we need to put some time into, given that it is so different between different utilities.
Thanks, John. Tony, did you have something?
yes, I did. With regard to UPCO, we state in here that, rates are trending down, but remain the highest in the UP/state, except for industrial customers. I don't think that UPCO is the highest in the UP as far as their rates. Something that we've learned in the past, and I think we should correct that if we can.
Thank you. That's a good.
Yeah, I think it's that they are the highest for the investor-owned utilities regulated by the commission, but I think Ontonagon likely has higher rates than UPCO.
That's what I was
It's a good catch.
Yep.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks. All right. The next item was an overview of some of the potential options in the UP that Doug Jester provided, and covering, going back to some of the rate stuff, but then talking about renewables and, what the site, pointing out the issues with siting came up in a future discussion as well, but then looking at opportunities and barriers in transmission or transportation, I'm sorry, like electric vehicles, electrification, so greater deployment of electricity for different, say for heating or other uses, and then looking at efficiency opportunities as well. So before we move on, let me open that one up to see if there's anything that should be captured here. Okay. That was fun. So next, and getting a little closer in time now, our October 7th meeting, there did have, you know, discussion of the presentation that Douglas had provided from the previous meeting, and then what some of the issues were that the task force members thought needed to either be focused on, and we were looking for feedback on topics that future presentations should be focused on as well. So, you know, this just capturing a list of some of the items that were identified there. I think this one will feed into the discussion that we'll have later about where some recommendations or themes are coming among us, where recommendations are falling together, as well as a discussion about what we might still want some more information on. So that one, I think, you know, is good for information, but we'll cover that as we go forward. So this is also where Sarah Mills gave us the overview of the survey that they had done, that University of Michigan had done, of the local government officials in the UP. So both looking at their policies related to energy issues, things like citing what they were doing for energy for those local units of government in terms of their own evaluation of energy efficiency, or, you know, specific renewable targets and things like that. And then just some of the viewpoints of the local leaders there. So that was a really insightful, you know, addressing some of the stuff around siting, and then how local leaders were engaging with each other as well. So anything on that topic that anyone wants to add? Okay. So now we're just at the last meeting, where Chairman Scripps provided an overview of the planning process. And we discussed just what the requirements are, how those, you know, what's incorporated into the planning that the utilities present to the commission as part of that process. And then who that applied to. If you'll recall, we discussed and it applies to the investor-owned utilities, but not to the cooperatives and the municipal utilities. And then also had a discussion on financing that's available for a number of these types of programs that we talked about, whether it's energy efficiency or opportunities for local units of government to pursue energy efficiency improvements, and on-bill financing. So really looking at where there are resources for funding for some of the programs that have been discussed. And then I think from there we had, in addition to some of the continuing to look, I think, at recommendations, the topics of smart grid and broadband came up. And I know the importance of broadband as we look at potential electrification in the Upper Peninsula, that without having that service in place and working well, that some of those other things would be difficult. And then the themes, I think, were just, these are, you know, not those that we've specifically identified in these categories as a task force yet, but just taking some of the pieces that we've identified and trying to categorize them a little bit so that there's something to look at there. Again, I presume that the discussion as this meeting goes forward will address some of these things, but you do have some of those ideas there to reference as that discussion goes forward. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Tanya. Any discussion here about the recap or additional things people want to draw out before we transition over to a more facilitated conversation about the recommendations?
Yes, this is David Camps. I been going over Dan Chairman Scripps presentation last week, and there's a lot of information there. It's very good presentation, and there's a lot to absorb in there. So reviewing that's probably a good idea. I've done it. I'm on my third time now, but very good presentation there, Dan. Thank you. And I think there's some levers that we need to address in there as far as rate of change of what we're gonna try and attempt, whatever that may be, as we come out with electrification or demand response, whatever that may be. A lot of handles to address in there and consider. So I'm sure we'll be discussing that more.
Madam Chair, I have a comment.
Please, Tony.
Thank you, Tanya. Great overview. Thanks for sending that out this morning, because we covered a lot of ground since May. We have taken in a lot of information. That's really a help to maybe our memories from all the information we've taken in. So I just wanted to thank you and the staff for putting this together. This is a great way, and great reference to go back to as we continue our discussion. Thank you.
I second that motion, Tony.
I third it. Thank you. Okay. Other thoughts before we transition over? Okay, well, with that, Julie, Eric, I want to hand it off to you all. Really appreciate you coming in and helping us figure out how to put our thoughts into order and drive us to the next step.
Well, the honor is ours for sure, and we appreciate you letting us help this important work move forward. I'm Julie Meddy-Bennett. I'm the CEO of Public Sector Consultants. Eric, do you want to introduce yourself? I know you're a familiar face, but.
Yeah, hi again, members of the task force. Eric Pardini with Public Sector. Happy to be helping out with phase 2.
Yeah. So what we're going to do today, and the email from Director Clark set this up, and I want to just really appreciate those that participated in that quick turn survey. 10 of you did, which blew my expectations out of the water, just considering how busy this time of year is and how quickly we asked you to turn that around. So thank you for doing that. It helps. It's going to help in the background today to move us forward. But what we're going to do today is really identify themes, as Tanya was talking about, themes for recommendations. So it's important, I think, to have an organizational structure and buckets for the recommendations you're going to move forward. At a subsequent meeting, we'll get into details and wordsmithing about the precise recommendations that will fall within these buckets. But today we're just getting consensus about what the buckets are. And the way we're going to do that is through a whiteboarding exercise where, and I'm just going to lay out the roadmap for you so you know where we're headed. But first, we're going to do a round robin approach of, so I'll call on you using the attendance that was taken this morning. And what I'm going to ask is for you to state your clearest idea that you had in response to the question, what actions are needed to address the energy needs in Michigan's Upper Peninsula? And those of you that responded to the survey, Eric sent your responses back out in case you hadn't documented those. So, you've got a head start. Yours are all in front of you. For those of you that didn't participate in the survey, we're hoping that you have those ideas in front of you. And I'm just going to share the whiteboard right now. Just a second. You all see that?
Looks great.
Okay. And so the rules that we're using are that we want you to start with your clearest idea. So when I call on you, I'd like you to say the clearest idea among all the ideas that you had in terms of the response to this question. And keep it brief, 3 to 7 words, because you'll see that we're going to be putting them on little sticky notes. And so if you have too many words, we're not going to be able to see. And again, at this point, it's not important be really detailed because again, we're just allowing themes to emerge that then we'll put detail around. And so an example might be expand access to energy efficiency investment. So what we're going to do is do a round robin approach. Then we're going to see if there are similar ideas on the whiteboard. I'm going to ask, you know, do you see two ideas on the whiteboard that have a common theme or seem to go together? And we're going to go through creating pairs. We'll do some rounds of pairing. Once we get some pairs and we get some groups to start emerging, we're going to tag those with one or two words that kind of represent what's in that group. And then we're going to name the groups. So that'll be, again, 3 to 7 words that really summarize what's in that family of Post-its in terms of an answer to this question. And as a result, you'll see these kind of categories that will start to emerge that we then can put recommendations under. I'm just going to pause there and ask if there's any questions about the process or anything that wasn't clear for what I just explained before we move into the process.
Julie, Tony Rataski, I'm unable to see the whiteboard as you're showing it. Is there something that I can do on my screen to help? And also try to participate in the survey, but it wouldn't allow me to go forward if I only answered like 6 of the buckets or 6 of the questions. That was yesterday.
You know, that's perfectly fine because you've got your ideas in front of you, and so you'll be able to participate just like everybody else. But if you can't see the whiteboard, it'll be hard for you to participate in the pairing, but you'll still be able to hear the dialogue. So I think it'll be all right.
Thank you.
Julie, I'm wondering if you unshare and reshare. Sometimes I've noticed when I have trouble like seeing what's shared, if we kind of go through that exercise, sometimes it'll pop it back up. Sorry, Tony, that we're having this problem.
No, that's right. This happens to me. It's technology that beats me up all the time.
Actually, Eric, you might be able to share it. Let's try it again. Let's try me. I just unshared. So let me try to reshare. We'll try this solution first. Okay, I just reshared it. Did that help?
No, not for me. I just have like your initials and a black screen that has your initials on it. So.
Hey, Tony, I'm going to email you a link that you should be able to pull up in a web browser to this. And so if anyone else is having trouble viewing the whiteboard, just shoot me a note or just raise your hand and I can send that over to you real quick.
Thank you. I can follow along on my other device.
Great. Good idea. Thank you, Eric.
Okay. Back into the presentation mode. Okay, so any other questions or comments before we dive in? Okay, so I'm gonna, first I just wanna make sure that Chris Schwartz, General Rogers, and Chris Bowman and Mike Crucy are still not with us because I'm not gonna call on you unless you've joined. Okay, great. So I'm going to start at the alphabetically at the bottom and work our way up. And what I'm asking you to do is to tell me your clearest answer to the workshop question, which is at the top of your screen. What actions are needed to address the energy needs in Michigan's Upper Peninsula? We're going to start with Tanya Sweener.
Increase energy efficiency funding to UP organizations.
Okay. Next is Roman.
Let me try. Further define security, reliability, affordability, environmental soundness. That's 7, I think.
Great. Eric, a minute. Dan Scripps, you're going to next.
Improve long-term electricity planning in UP.
Sorry, I'm having a freezing issue on this.
Do you need me to repeat it, Eric?
Eric, you're muted if you're talking to us. Or perhaps you're talking to yourself.
Yeah, no, Dan, can you repeat it one more time?
Yeah, improve long-term electricity planning in UP.
Tony, you're next.
I agree with Tanya with regard to funding for organizations that could help. So I'll just use her words and go from there. Thanks.
Okay. Mike Nystrom?
Expand natural gas possibilities.
Michael Larson?
It's along the same line as the energy efficiency, but utilities continue and increase energy efficiency program.
Okay. Jim Kachiver?
Pardon me. In an effort to be different from those up before me, I'd add create public information and communications packaging. Just a lot of this stuff is maybe familiar to us, but I'm not certain that public is available of energy options available to them, maybe specific even to energy efficiency type information.
Okay. Aaron Johnson?
Thank you. One of the themes I'm focusing on in my mind is electrification and autonomous vehicles and such, and the expansion we're likely to see in that. So I would say plan for load growth from electrification.
Douglas Wester, you're up next.
UP utilities provide on-bill repayment for deep retrofits.
Jennifer Hill.
All right, yeah. Again, I agree with most of what's been said, but to expand some of the concepts, I would go with expanding non-wire alternative options that bring reliability and environmental sustainability.
Mike Formansky, you are next.
Encourage small scale solar. Scattered seemed a lot of the opposition to solar has been, the big solar projects that have been presented. I don't have a number, but if you kept it smaller, perhaps that would reduce or eliminate some of the complaints against it.
Okay. Did you hear that one, Eric? Okay, Dave Camps.
I backed way up to our first task force meetings and was thinking of mitigating propane supply disruptions. And so my first one was increase alternative propane supply system readiness. The thing we discussed out of Conway on the rail spurs and all that.
Great.
And then I had a second one.
Let's just do one first, and then we're going to do another round or two of this. So just hold tight on that. Thanks,
okay.
Dave. Tanya Poslowski.
Mine is in the energy efficiency realm too. So I think I would say provide incentives for increases in energy efficiency.
Okay. Great. And Director Clark.
Thanks, Julie. I've got 3 in the interest of the first one. I'm having a hard time prioritizing, but I'm going to go with stronger peninsula coordination / transparency on energy.
Great. Okay. So when you look at these Post-its that are on the board, are there any questions of clarity that you have for the authors? Is something that's not quite clear that you'd like more detail about before we get to pairing?
Is that on any of the Post-its?
Yep, any of the Post-its, if it's not clear what was meant, the person whose Post-it it is can help you understand it better.
Well, one of the ones that concerns me is somebody posted dismantle UPCO. A lot of customers there, and I'm not sure what is meant by that.
Oh, you're seeing what's off the screen?
Well, yeah, because he sent me maybe it's not on the screen, and maybe that's coming up.
Yeah, it'll come up. It'll
Okay.
come up.
Thanks.
Yep, let's stick to what's on the screen. Yeah, you're getting to see the kind of the madness behind the method. So. In terms of all those things. Okay, so if there's no questions, I'll ask you, are there any 2 Post-its, and we're going to stick to just pairs. I know you're going to want to add to the pairs. Try to resist for now. You see any 2 Post-its that seem to belong together, that seem to tackle a common theme?
Julie, can you increase the size of these Post-it notes or the background at all? It's a little tough to read some of these on, I don't know, might be my resolution or, there you go.
That up?
Sometimes in Teams you can expand on your own computer too when it's shared like this. So I'm not sure if it works in all formats, but that might be something to try, folks, too, because I'm also making it bigger.
That helped. That helped.
Okay. So I'll just read through them and just think if they're, as I'm reading them, if you hear 2 that sound similar. 1, increase energy efficiency funding to UP organizations, funding for organizations to help with energy efficiency, utilities continue and increase energy efficiency programs, expanding non-wires alternatives for resiliency and environmental protection, further define security, reliability, and environmental soundness, improve long-term electricity planning in the UP, expand natural gas possibilities, plan for load growth from electrification, UP utilities provide on-bill repayment for deep energy retrofits, create public information and comms packaging, encourage small-scale solar in various places, increase alternative propane supply system readiness, increase energy efficiency with incentives, and stronger peninsula coordination, transparency on energy. Are there any pairs that you see?
It seems the upper right and the lower right kind of would pair together.
Increase energy efficiency to UP organizations, and utilities continue and increase energy efficiency programs. Or was it those 2 you were thinking?
Yes.
Okay, great. Are there other pairs that are different? 2 that sound similar to each other but are different than the pair we just made?
The stronger peninsula coordination, transparency on energy, and the improved long-term electricity planning in the UP. Yeah.
Does anybody disagree with that? Does that, or do we all think those belong together?
No, but I would add, my suggestion to the same group, because it really does refer to sort of the foundational ways to make policy.
Okay. I disagree with that addition.
Do the colors have any relevance
No.
now? No, okay.
Just random. Okay, so we've got a couple pairs set. From those that haven't been grouped yet, do we see any pairs? And you don't have to force it, but if there are two that are similar or seem to be in the same family, let's identify those now.
Well, that increased energy efficiency with incentives, I mean, if we're creating a bucket of energy efficiency, that would all go.
Any other pairs?
If we're making an energy efficiency bucket, do we move on bill repayment for deep energy retrofits over there too?
Anybody disagree with that?
This is Douglas. That was mine, and I do not object to that, but I would note it could include electrification as well as efficiency.
That's a very good point.
So we'll keep it out for now. All right, have we exhausted the pairing and the grouping for this round? Or does anyone see? Okay, well, let's do another round robin. And since we have quite a few around energy efficiency, I'd probably not put that one, forward at this time. Try to find new ideas or ideas that relate to those that haven't formed a group yet. So here we go, round robin again. And this time, why don't we start at the top? Director Clark, you want to say your second most clear idea?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I hope I'm under my word cap. Lean into energy economic development opportunities, including reliability and sustainability. Might have to drop a word.
It's okay.
What if we say energy economic development for reliability and sustainability? And cost, throw cost in there too. Since I got to pick up a word by dropping a word. Do whatever you need to do to it, Eric. I'll stop wordsmithing.
All right, next up is going to be Tanya Kozlowski.
My second is the coordination among providers in the UP. Better coordination. So I think it could be a second vote for that first one on the coordination bucket.
All right. Dave Camps, please. Dave, are you still with us? Okay, we'll come back to Dave. Mike Formansky.
Work on lowering rates in the UP.
Okay. Jennifer Hill.
Connecting broadband planning, electrification, and connecting broadband and electrification planning.
I think Eric's got, yeah, we'll just switch that to electrification. Okay, Douglas Jester.
Develop study of optimum transmission and distributed resource architecture in UP. Lots of words, sorry.
You took your survey, so he's prepared.
Yeah, you can put all the words you want in there, Douglas, as long as I had them beforehand.
Yeah, right. Aaron Johnson.
Okay, I'll go a little different here again. work on high-speed charging along interstate US or M routes, so your major highways.
Jim Achiever.
Going back to where we spent half of our time at the start, as one of the notes already talks about, detail a propane interruption emergency action plan, or EAP.
Michael Larson.
A little bit related here is beneficial electrification through fuel switching, such as replacing natural gas or propane.
Mike Nystrom.
I guess would be similar to others, but continued improved communication and coordination.
Tony?
I'm going to tag on with Mr. Formansky and reduce UP rates.
Dan Script. Dan? Back to Dan. Roman.
Okay, I will try. Prioritize and incentivize the use of brownfields for energy siting. I think I'm understanding.
I love the respect for the rules you all have. It's refreshing. Let's see, Tanya Sweener.
Restructure rate-making process to reduce energy costs.
Okay. Once that pops up, I'm going to ask you to start identifying. Well, first I'm going to ask, are there any questions of clarity for these Post-its that are up?
Julie, I checked out there for a minute, computer problem, so I don't know if you called on me or not. This is Dave Camp.
Yeah, do you have an idea that you want to throw up on the board before we start pairing?
Yeah, just my number 2 one is implement energy efficiency program for propane customers, but I see we got something very similar to that.
That's okay. I mean, it's also important to know the number of ideas behind something, to know, kind of how popular it is, or it might lead to a prioritization if that comes to be. So it's okay to have duplicate.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that also tells us something. So, okay, so when you look at these ideas, I'm not going to read them to you because that takes quite a bit of time. But as you look at them and read them to yourself, are there any questions of clarity for the author? Just give you a second to look at those.
Julie, I got one question. This is Dave Camp again. There's one up here that says leading into economic development operations op. What is that one?
I think that was Director Clark. Do you want to speak to that, Riesel?
Yeah, that's me, Dave. I think that in my mind, there are a lot of economic development opportunities around energy. And so making sure that we're thinking about that. And honestly, it sort of fits in even with reduced UP energy rates, right? So in my mind, there are connective tissues around energy work that helps expand economic opportunity. And so it's figuring out, how do we make sure that we're keeping that as one of our base tenets in the work that we're doing.
Yes, I agree. Not only painful change, but a lot of opportunity in there. Thanks.
Okay. Are there any pairs that you're starting to see emerge that you want to speak to?
As the author of the broadband and electrification planning, pairing it with one that Director Clark was just mentioning, that I see that as related.
Okay. Anybody disagree with that? Okay, great. We have a new pair. Are there any others that have not been paired or grouped yet that seem to go together, or any that are hanging on out there that could go with an existing group?
Wondering if prioritizing and incentivizing the use of brownfields for energy siting fits the same category.
Anybody disagree with that? You want to move it over, Eric? Excuse me. Okay.
You have the development of study of transmission there. I think that probably goes along in our second group there with the coordination on transparency and long-term energy planning.
Anybody disagree? Okay. All right, let's keep rolling. Any other pairs or joiner?
We have another beneficial electrification there that if we're putting that into a bucket, might as well throw that in there too. Beneficial electric, there you go, yeah.
And which does that goes to this group?
I think in that group with the electrification planning, yeah.
Does anybody disagree with that? Okay. While we're on, so we've got some groups emerging. Let's go ahead and give those a tag just so that it's clear kind of what's beginning to emerge. So if we start all the way to the right and we've got increased energy efficiency funding to UP, funding for orgs to help with EE, utilities continue and increase energy efficiency, what's a 1 or 2 word tag that you might put on top of that that represents that group?
Increase energy efficiency.
Okay. Anybody have something different or disagree?
Or EWR is what it's called now, energy waste reduction, increase that, same thing.
Yeah, again, you're not going to get this tattooed on your body, so the wordsmithing isn't as important, but just kind of getting a sense of what's under that bucket. Great. Okay, then let's go to the next one. Stronger peninsula coordination, transparency on energy, improve long-term electricity planning, further define security, reliability, and environmental soundness, develop study of optimum transmission and distributed resource architecture in UP. Is there a 1 or 2 word tag that represents that grouping?
Could just call it planning.
Anybody agree or have something different? Great. Okay, planning it is. And then the next one, lean into economic development opportunities, connect broadband and electrification planning, prioritize and incentivize the use of brownfields for energy siting, beneficial electrification through fuel switching, replacing propane, natural gas. Is there a 1 to 2 word tag that represents that group?
I guess I see it as economic development. And on reading them, Jen, I see your connection, but I also see that broadband electrification planning could span these 2 categories too. Just pointing, I mean, there's a lot of things, I guess, that could span the categories. But
Agreed. Agreed.
Should we leave it there or does it move away?
We can leave it there. I mean, I think there are planks as well, because there are ways that keeping our fundamentals underneath us, they cross categories.
Yeah. So economic development was identified as a tag for this. Is that good? with everyone? Okay. Eric, you want to throw that tag up there? And then I wonder as a group if you want to make that all smaller, because we don't really need to read it as much anymore, but we need more board space. So
Sure.
okay. And we can still add to those groups as they come up, but we just don't need to focus on those that don't have homes yet. So let's move over to the left side. And are there any over here that go to, that are either economic development planning or EWR, or are there new groups that you want to start forming?
There's another planning tag right there, more coordination among providers. But if they're talking about providers though, I guess I don't know, is that actually EWR providers? I guess I don't know who wrote that. Among providers, or is that utilities?
And whoever
Same.
that is, do you want to speak to what was meant by that?
Yeah, this is Tanya. That was mine. It is more among utilities.
So is that a more of an EWR response than a?
No, I think it's more fits in the planning,
Okay.
the planning bucket.
Okay.
Got it.
And planning, planning for load growth from electrification could fall into the planning bucket too. It's just part of anticipating changing needs and needing to plan for it.
What do folks think about that? Agree that that goes under planning?
Part of me wonders is like, because I think electrification has come up a lot. I mean, is that its own, is electrification really its own kind of discussion point?
I could agree to that, certainly, yeah.
Are there any that have been grouped that need to come out to form a new electrification group?
The high-speed charging.
Well, I would be against it because, we're talking about end use energy, right? So we're not talking about the, procedural aspect or the goal, which is the economic development. So I think that electrification has to do with almost every single bucket here. But alternatively, I was wondering if create public information and communications packaging would be more suitable under planning, because public participation and engagement should definitely be part of that process.
What do people think about that? Is that fit under planning? Does anybody disagree that that does not go under planning? Okay. Let's move it there then.
So, were you saying that you disagree with removing electrification from the economic development section?
Well, me? No, I think it should belong there. Yeah. No, I was under the impression that electrification should be its own category. So, and
sure.
I'm against that.
Okay, so let's just pause there for a minute and come to some resolution around seeing it. Do you feel like there should be, and when we're thinking about organizing our recommendations and the buckets, is electrification its own thing, or does it fall under the planning bucket?
I think this is Dave Camps. I agree with electrification being its own thing. There's a lot to it, a lot of stuff to consider regarding that.
Okay.
Okay.
If anybody disagrees with that, speak up now.
I do.
Okay. Why is that?
Because electrification it's end-use energy, right? So electrification has, again, sort of as I said, it's a cross-cutting thing, that can be applied even to, planning, economic development. It belongs to other things as well. So I think that planning would be, especially when it's, the post-it note starts with plan for load growth and electrification from electrification. So I think it's more suitable there.
Okay.
I'm gonna capitulate to Roman on that, and maybe we need to dumb it down a little bit more as far as transportation electrification, and that strategy may be a separate category for itself. And then, we have buildings along. There may be another dichotomy we can identify in there.
So I guess I'm continuing to see some parallel planks. We've got buckets. I'm now in my head, I'm seeing planks, if that makes sense. So themes that cross our buckets. And that might also be a way to be inclusive and have a more comprehensive recommendation.
I completely agree because, and I think it will be a much more effective way to provide recommendations if we identify those cross-cutting themes. And I do also like Dave's suggestion about, potential separate bucket for transportation. Because definitely, we do have a suggestion somewhere about charging infrastructure. EV charging infrastructure actually was one of my recommendations in response to the survey as well. Because again, electrification belongs there as well. And electrification also belongs into economic development. So I don't know how to capture it best. So I would refer to Julie on the mastery of cross-cutting patterns.
I would say let's not overthink it for now. Because I agree that we can have cross-cutting issues and we can talk about that when we're framing up the final report. But for now, just at a high level, getting these groupings down, and then, we'll document everything that falls within and we can pull out the cross-cutting things. Is that a solution for now that could work?
Sure.
Okay.
So something that jumps to mind then, including the one that was hidden but discussed, the question of ownership and generation ownership is a cross-cutting, I think, issue, but it gets to the small scale solar in various places. It gets to net metering. It gets to economic development. I'm not sure where to put it, but the idea that ownership matters a great deal, of ownership of the generation and adding the resource back onto the grid. I don't know exactly how to welcome refinement of the concept.
Was that an idea that you had, Jen, that's not up here yet, that you're bringing forward to put on the board?
Yeah, I actually didn't mention it in my list because it seems so action-oriented. It seemed like you're asking for actions, but the question that frequently comes up in the conversation about energy in the UP is who owns it, and who those owners, whether they're exploiting the users, I'll just use that word, or their relationship to the customer and the owner.
Okay. Well, maybe can we just stick to what's on the board, and we'll do another round, and if you could put some thought into like what that might look like on the board, we can come back to that. So is there anything up here that belongs in a family or needs to be in a new family before we move to another round?
I think not expanding down to wires alternatives. I think that kind of falls in the planning bucket. And the other one, I guess, ask Douglas whether or not on-bill repayment would kind of fall in the increase EW. Would that fall in EWR, or is that would not fall in that kind of bucket?
It certainly can be part of increasing EWR. I just had flagged earlier that it also can be electrification or distributed generation.
Sure.
More like a financing.
Right.
Okay, Okay.
Yeah,
Alright.
financing sounds good. You got reduced UP rates, which is going to come up again. I think that's going to be critical to deployment of a lot of technology if you have high rates. So I think that's a good category.
So were you suggesting that the on-bill and the reduced rate are in one group with financing as a heading, or?
Yes, that's why. Yes, possibly. Looks like it might fit.
What do folks think about that?
Well, I'm so it would be cross.
Jen, you're breaking up a little there.
And reduce UP rates is a goal, not a bucket.
I'm a little trouble hearing you, Jen.
Okay, yeah. Why did I bring up broadband? So, and I'm in town. Finance cutting, it doesn't deserve its own bucket. Yeah, I've lost.
Do you think financing is cross-cutting and doesn't deserve its own bucket?
Correct.
Okay. Any thoughts about that?
I think I generally agree with that.
Yeah, I guess I'll go with that. Dave, Cam's here.
Can we create buckets of cross-cutting issues, or is that the will of the group? We want to start putting issues into a cross-cutting bucket?
Yeah, it seems that some of the things, so we've got beneficial electrification under economic development, but we also have plan for load growth from electrification under planning. And I would say that the high-speed charging potentially is also connected to, I mean, that's not the only form of electrification, but it is one. And so, but those are, it seems like, are cutting across a couple places.
Okay. How do folks feel about this notion of categorizing the things that we keep coming up against as being cross-cutting into a cross-cutting bucket, so that's the way that they could be framed in a final report? Anybody disagree with that approach? Okay.
This is Tanya Sweenor. What about policy as a heading?
So the goal of the exercise is to come up with answers to this question of what actions are needed to address energy needs in Michigan's UP. And so after we're done tagging, we would kind of rename these as an answer to the question. So if that helps with the thinking around this process, we can do a cross-cutting bucket. It doesn't necessarily answer the question, nor does policy. So just trying to reorient you to what we're trying to accomplish here as you think through this.
Can we review this after we just paste this up here and get it sort of roughed in and then refine it on the second swag?
Sure. Yeah.
And to use the cross cut and see, maybe take another look at those across the cut bucket.
Sure. Anybody disagree with that? You can go ahead and throw up a tag for these that is cross-cutting. And we've got high-speed charging, beneficial electrification through fuel switching, plan for load growth from electrification. Those are currently in the cross-cutting bucket. Anything else that needs to be moved over?
Communication and coordination, along with the other communication packaging.
And then over on the left, Eric, continued improved communication and coordination. Is that the one that goes under cross-cutting for now?
Yep.
Hey, Julie, are you seeing the changes? I'm not seeing them on the screen share, but they're showing up on this end.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, it's
I'm
probably
not
just my
seeing
screen
them.
share then.
Does the board represent what we talked about so far? Anything that's hasn't been done before we move forward? Any changes you'd like to see made that aren't showing up? Okay.
You got a couple propanes there probably could be put together too, just to pair them up.
Okay. We've got increased alternative propane supply systems, implement energy efficiency program for propane customers. Those belong in their own group. And yep, there's another propane.
I feel like you could connect those and the NG possibilities and potentially even some of the electrification pieces in addressing high cost of heating.
That would be the tag for this group?
Yeah, so some of that might be extending natural gas, some of it may be pieces around, I mean, maybe not. I guess the interruption EAP and alternative propane supply system readiness are separate, but there is something about heating as a broad category that includes both propane, natural gas, and potentially electrification.
Reactions to that? Do you want to put a tag on that grouping?
When I was thinking of propane, I was just thinking of immediate risk mitigation based on Director Clark's email. What's the most pressing issues? So that's my thought process for that. But I would be okay with it.
All right, there's 4 over here. Do they belong anywhere, or are they kind of stranded and we're going to add some more? So encourage small scale solar, restructuring rate making, utilities to write on bill, reduce UP rates.
I'm not seeing the changes on my screen.
I'm not either.
Julie, can you refresh your share?
Sure.
There it is.
There we go.
I don't know what I did, but that worked pretty well.
Magician.
I just moved my mouse, so who knows? Okay, so we've got 4 over on the left. Do they belong anywhere before we start giving them friends? Okay. So let's do this again. And
sorry, Julie. I think rates are cross-cutting because I think rates ties into everything. Am I missing the boat on that?
anyone disagree?
Not at all.
Okay. I think like that's like a fundamental thing.
Okay, so we're gonna go around again and let's come up with, something that you want to bring forward that hasn't been said, or something that might, form a family or form a pair with what's up here. So we're going to start with Tanya Sweener. Is there an idea you want to share? An answer to the question hasn't been shared, or?
Let's see. Public energy literacy education funding.
How about Roman?
Just give me a second. It's remaining, right? Things that we haven't yet to add up to the board, right?
Sure. Yep, that'd be great.
Exclude fossil fuel fire generation from new generation capacity.
Chris.
Better grid ties to Wisconsin and lower Michigan.
Tony.
I don't have anything to add on this one. Thank you.
Mike Nystrom. Mike Nystrom. Okay, we'll move to Michael Larson.
Yeah, I have enabling adoption of consequential solar behind the meter, kind of through utility incentives, zoning, and permitting. It's more than 7 words.
Might be a reiteration, but I'd add foster or capture synergies amongst existing providers.
Aaron Johnson.
Boy, I guess I don't have anything really new. I had one that was just to focus on a net decrease in customers' utility bills in general, so that if we have, one area starts to get way more expensive for people, I guess it really is just supporting the idea of utility rates and lowering them in general.
Okay, sounds great. Douglas Jester.
I'll be provocative. Study potential benefits and costs of structural changes in UP electric sector.
That seems like being more than 7 words.
I'm just gonna pause for that one. Okay, there we go. Jennifer Hill.
Increase contractor education and access to, and then supply chain for new materials. They're really 2 different concepts that I'm shoving together, but it's, I'll stick to the contractors being able to do the work. Yeah, that's good, Eric. Thank you.
Yep. Mike Fermansky.
Train building trades in energy efficient methods.
Dave Camps.
I would expand the EWR program with fuel switching. And I see we got something on that up there, but I had discussion notes under this number 3, which was stabilize the industry with stretch goals, fuel switching away from fossil fuels and overall electrification, better workforce development, and continued EE improvement are the results. That's just discussion. But the thing would be expand EWR program with fuel switching.
Awesome, thank you. Tanya Kozlowski.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have citing education / initiatives for local government officials. And I guess I'll just throw out, I think it could be broader than citing and could be, policies as well. So local government, education or initiatives on energy policies for local government officials with citing someplace in the background. You're welcome, Eric.
Citing. Director Clark.
So I have two more. So I'm gonna say one and then count the other one. So one of mine was broadband, expand broadband. But since it's reflected up here, I'm gonna go with my fourth, which is support local officials, because I think that on the ground, local community, let me say, support local officials and communities. That's really important. And then Julie, we picked up Mike Prusy too, so I want to give him an opportunity to chime in if he feels like it.
Okay.
Thank you, Director Clark. I apologize. I was struggling to link up this morning. I was clicking on last month's link and wondering why there was no one on the meeting. But
we missed you. I'm glad you're here.
I have a couple that are pretty close to what's already been up there, and one was assist local units with energy project zoning. We've got, you know, close to 200 different townships and cities and villages in the UP. Some of them are very welcoming. Some of them don't understand or haven't been cued in on the potential here. So if we could find a way to assist these local units with their zoning in order to get energy projects approved, and then educate residents on large-scale renewable potential and try to diminish the not in my backyard syndrome that seems to everybody trying to develop any sort of large-scale renewable is running into. So I think the state can be very instrumental in helping locals understand what the pros and cons are of these projects.
Thank you. Okay, so looking at the ideas we just added, do you see any new families emerging? Any relationship among those that were just added?
Seems like the local government interaction or support has a couple in there.
It's just local units of energy project zoning, support locals. Or any besides those three, Tanya, that touch on?
Yeah, I think those three are the ones I was looking at.
Do you think of a tag for those? And you know, if you disagree with this as a grouping, please speak now, or let's kind of put a tag on that.
I think it's not descriptive, but local government certainly is an overarching theme.
I was wondering if it would make sense to expand the planning section into perhaps something like planning, governance, and engagement, and move the suggestions about the local government engagement, education, those kind of things in there, because it all, in my view, constitutes essentially a governance system that is critical for comprehensive planning.
Thoughts about that?
Or would that be cross-cutting, Roman? Because you'd need that for all of these things to be effective?
I mean, yeah. Any kind of engagement, sort of, in my view, and education would be a cross-cutting. I suppose that's what I do in part. Yeah, possibly.
Roman had suggested that the three related to local officials and communities and education, do those belong with planning, or should we have a bucket just for those?
I'll throw out, I wonder if there's a like local government and community engagement, as the term that you just used, Julie, but would that include, I think maybe there's some of these pieces we're talking about, but the public literacy and some of the education pieces to the public, I don't know if those things are too separate, but they seem connected to me in all being part of, we need to help folks understand what the options are, how to best utilize them, and that is both community members as well as local officials. So is there maybe a more expansive bucket?
Around community education.
Yes.
Okay.
I like that.
Well, I do like Jan's idea, actually, because if we sort of, if we create a separate category for local governments, I mean, that's almost right. So, and I think it is a cross-cutting theme because it does impact economic development. I mean, any kind of a social acceptance issue, right? We are dealing with engagement. So if it's, sort of a cross-cutting theme that is embedded in the process, I think it will almost emerge in every single phase, whatever the phase is or whatever the category is.
Yeah, and I would just throw it in response to that. I obviously wholeheartedly agree with what you're saying, Roman. It just seems like we have enough things in this bucket that whether they're lumped into a bucket, that the bucket fits under cross-cutting makes sense, but that there's so many of them that just throwing them into cross-cutting, I feel like doesn't give it the right recognition of the number of initiatives that have come up under that engagement or education component.
Understood. I agree. Perhaps it should be maybe the importance of this actions will be emphasized by the fact that they belong in its own bucket, right?
Are there any other post-its on the left? I'm just keeping my eye on the time because we still need to kind of flesh out the tags to names. Are there any new families to be developed from these post-its that are kind of orphans right now?
I'd just like to make a comment. Dave Camps here. Reading a utility dive article this morning, they divide energy efficiency into behavioral energy efficiency and structural energy efficiency. And behavioral includes education for the public and literacy, all that kind of stuff, because it does impact how people behave. They get energy efficiency out of the people understanding this stuff. Maybe in the future, we might be able to divide it out a little more.
Yeah. We can add that kind of information to the report as we flesh these out. That's a good point. Okay, orphans on the left. When you look at that, are you like, oh, that's a new category?
This is Jen.
Go ahead, Jen.
My connections is keep. The study.
So I'm not a Teams expert, but is there a way that she could pull it on her phone and the audio could be through her phone?
Jen, if you turn your video off, sometimes the connection stays more solid too. I have to say, anytime Jen cuts out, I want to put one more tick mark next to increased broadband. Tick, tick. Try now, Jen.
Thank you. Is that better, everybody?
It is, yeah, Jen.
The potential, the structural changes in electric power sector, would that be in planning or is that a different question, Douglas?
Well, I suppose you could call it planning, but it's really about sort of the institutional structure of the industry was what I had in mind, which seems to me to be different than planning, generation resources or grid or anything like that.
And then second, I think it does deserve to be separate. Second concept is the training So the training, building trades, it was what I was getting at, which was increased contractor knowledge. Those are, to me, that question of making sure that people can do the work needs to go somewhere.
That would there be a tag like workforce development or something like that, or belong in one of our existing groups?
Correct.
I would suggest perhaps a broader categorization would be supply chain development.
Yeah.
Okay. Or any supply chain related post-its that haven't been brought over? Okay, supply chain. Okay, so encourage small scale solar in various places.
I would connect that one with the, there's another solar one, 2 down from there, enabling adoption of consequential solar behind the meter. I would put that as distributed energy resources or distributed generation.
So let's create a new family called distributed generation and move the two. Does anybody disagree with that new grouping and that tag?
Well, I was, this is Mike Formansky. I was the one that had the encourage small scale solar. I was thinking like small, smallish utility scale solar, maybe in the, the 1 to 5 megawatt range. Whereas that other one there, I think came from Michael Larson, was, behind the meter, customer owned generation. So to me, they're, different because different sides of the meter.
Yeah. So the tag might just be renewables or.
That's what I would suggest, just a renewable energy grouping, and you could probably exclude the fossil fuel generation, post it in with that.
Okay.
So if I may, I also had a similar suggestion, but because it was very, very similar to that of Mike's, I decided not to phrase it. The way I phrased it is prioritize renewable DER to serve local loads. And then I added, because I wanted to be a rebel and exceed 7 words, through streamlining permitting and siting processes. But the idea is the renewable DERs to serve local loads.
Okay. But exclude fossil fuel fire generation from new generation capacity. Was that to be under renewables? I think was suggested as well. What about expand EWR programs with fuel switching enabled? Does that belong anywhere, or is that its own thing?
Then increase EWR. Then you also have focus on total decrease in customer bills.
And that's EWR too, you think?
I mean, you can decrease it, by reducing rates, or you can decrease it by increasing your efficiency and consuming less. So I feel like EWR might be the category, at least right now, it fits out of all of ours.
Restructuring rate making process to reduce energy costs. Does that have a home?
It seems related to the structural changes in electric power sector, to me.
Okay. Is that how would you frame that, or what would you label it as, Jen? Others?
Jen, did you have policy up there? Or did you suggest policy?
That was Tanya Sweener.
No, that was me, and I put that one up too. I was thinking of fuel switching when I wrote that out, because sometimes people don't want to because of the cost of electricity.
Yeah. But we may have to go to time of use rate structures. There's going to be a lot of attention on that stuff, I think, in the near future. So policy is probably a pretty good one. I don't know, maybe Chairman Scripps can comment on that.
sorry, go ahead. I think Douglas, you were going to speak. I know that's high.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I had one that that I haven't spoken to that perhaps Eric could bring over, that was about changing rate design to promote electrification.
So is there like a rate design bucket? And is that what you mean by policy? Or let's kind of come to some resolution around this conversation.
I don't know. There's rate design is not the end all, but it is a part of adapting to the changes we want to recommend, I think. So a little broader category might be in order there.
Well, and I think if we make it broad to rate design, then we don't have to specify the policy commission. We can still make that recommendation to the boards of directors of all the different utilities in the UP.
Like it. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jen.
Okay, so rate design. What about UP utilities to provide on-bill repayment for deep energy retrofits?
I think the question is it part of a broader finance approach, or do we want to focus on the end result of some of these financial tools? And I would argue for the latter, in which case I'd put it in increase EWR, but I think a pretty good argument could be made on either side.
Thoughts on that? So you lose sleep at night if it's under this category. It's a way to think about it. I'm sorry, I interrupted somebody.
Yeah. Well, this is Douglas, and once again, just want to say, absolutely, it's a tool for EWR. It's also a tool for electrification and for developing distributed energy resources.
That's a good point.
So, and I do not object at all to putting it under EWR. I don't want to lose sight of the other uses.
Okay. Look at that.
We make 2 copies of it.
Yeah, friend. Throw it in bowls and throw it under cross-cutting.
Yeah.
Okay, what about better grid ties to Wisconsin and Lower Peninsula, capture synergies among providers? Eric's getting fancy now. He's getting the arrows going.
Is capture synergies among providers a planning item? Was that Tanya?
I think it was Jim Kochever, if I'm remembering right.
Okay. Is that okay, Jim?
Bear with me, struggling with a mouse. Yes, that's okay.
What about the grid ties? Is that its own, is that new and different, or what's that about? Whose was that, and can you speak to that?
It was mine.
Okay.
I'm happy to be the ugly duckling at the end of this process.
Okay. I think don't worry about it.
It's probably part of it is sort of how you address sort of long-term reliability. Part of it's how you integrate renewables. Part of it is on cost, if you can then access lower cost resources outside. So it's probably planning.
When you look at
So we already access lower cost in Wisconsin. I know the BLP does in Marquette. It's cheaper for us to buy off the grid at night than it is for us to generate. At least recently.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you look at these buckets and you think about, you look at your list, because I'm sure we haven't, we can't keep going round and round and round, but when you look at your list, is there anything that if we were to put it up here would not have a home? So a bucket of recommendations that just are missing from this table, or with these categories, do you feel like there are homes for the things that you need to focus on moving forward as far as recommendations go?
Well, one idea that's missing that I had was electric resistance heating and replacing it with heat pumps immediately reduce people's costs. I guess you could even put that under heating, maybe, as a place. But I didn't want to lose sight of that.
Yeah, and I think Jen, we were getting at that with another one with electrification to kind of offset propane and natural gas. So I think that I can't see where it is right now, but I think we said that somewhere in here as well.
Well, I wanted to get the resistance heating in there. Those people are paying a lot of money and they don't need to be. And it's primarily renters right now. And I've lost my whiteboard.
Yeah, did someone steal control from me? Did I get it back?
There we go.
I think the one thing that's not here, and it's implicated in planning. We've got reliability in a couple places under planning, but we haven't really talked about issues on outages and that sort of thing. That would be the one thing that doesn't sort of explicitly pop as much as I expected it to.
This is Tanya Sweenor. I have propane infrastructure and storage. I'm not sure that fits anywhere.
And Julie, I have a category, it looks like a category for some of mine as grid modernization. I don't know if we need to put that up there, smart grid or any of that kind of stuff. If anybody thinks that's where we're going.
I have that too.
Okay. Throw that up there as a post-it, grid modernization. So we've got propane infrastructure and storage issues regarding reliability and outages and grid modernization.
So Julie, are you going to try to take the rest of our comments that we may have submitted and kind of fit them into some of these buckets, or?
Yeah, yes, we will do that. But I just want to make sure that there isn't a new bucket that needs to be created before we end our time here. So those three on the bottom feel like they don't fit anywhere. Do people agree with that? Or do they fit somewhere?
I think grid modernization is a cross-cut. I mean, it's almost a cross-cutting issue, right?
And I think propane infrastructure and storage, I mean, I think that kind of goes along with the alternative supply systems and propane interruption planning and things like that.
Okay.
It does seem like reliability might need to be its own bucket because it's not really clear. It's not cross-cutting exactly. It is another issue.
Okay, so reliability as its own issue. Did other people have actions around reliability? I mean, it's its own thing, but you all might have things related to that as well.
I mean, I had something, you know, it's talking about right sizing energy solutions, looking at like non-wires alternative storage, microgrids. I mean, those are all related to reliability, but I don't know if that's.
I agree. That was non-wires alternative. That was my idea too. That was related to that idea.
Where did it end up, Jen?
Planning.
Planning.
It's over in planning.
This is Tanya Sweenor. I also have efficient buildings and integrated energy systems that I think would be related.
Okay. Want to pull out Jen's non-wires and create a new reliability bucket? Does anybody disagree with that idea?
I mean, it is all related to really systems planning, right? So, I mean, it's I guess it's a sub bucket.
Of planning?
Well,
Yeah, I mean,
if I may, Roman, I'm thinking specifically of distribution wires breaking from snow load and squirrels, which is sort of beyond planning into investing in, I like how Michael Larson put it, where you're right sizing with microgrids and things where you can better contain the outages.
yeah, which is systems planning, system planning.
All right, fair enough.
So, I mean, I completely agree with you. I mean, rodents are evil. I have a couple of ugly ducklings. May I?
Yeah. Well, so are we agreeing this is systems?
okay.
Maybe we note that it's systems planning and it falls under planning. Are people good with that? Okay. Okay, let's, we only have a few minutes left, so yeah, let's get to some ugly ducklings.
All right, Douglas, I'm going to raise you in terms of controversial stuff.
Oh boy, in the last 5 minutes of the meeting.
So here's my one, create policy certainty for offshore wind development in Lake Superior. And that needs to be discussed, obviously. But if we want to be an
Holy
energy,
cow!
I know.
Lob.
Well, when we get into the details, that will be an interesting one, but does it fit under renewables for right now?
The renewables.
Okay.
So, and another one on the renewable front, facilitate and incentivize deployment of anaerobic digesters for biogas.
Okay. All right, so at this point, I'm just interested to know if there's a bucket missing, because what we'll do is we'll take the information you provided, we'll fit those under the categories that are obvious. If we have questions, we'll reach out to you. But what you'll see is these buckets with your idea categorized, and then an assignment for how we're going to name these, because we didn't quite get to that today. So we'll be taking, the word renewables and fleshing that out as an answer to the question that was posed to help further shape the buckets. So I'll just pause one more time and ask, is there a missing bucket? Is there an ugly duckling that just can't fit anywhere? Yeah. When you look at your list.
Yes, this is Dave Camps. I got a few of them here. I got kicked again. They asked me to sign in again all the time. I don't know what that's about yet, but I want to, demand response. I see there's a lot of demand response going on, and I'm concerned about costs with UPCO and the detriment to change that presents. So demand response can have an impact on that. So I've got to run a demand response with EV batteries and UPCO.
Is that fit under EWR?
Yeah, I'm not sure where we're going to put that. That's rate design maybe, or rate impact. I don't, something like that.
Design for now?
Excuse me?
I put under rate design for now?
Sure, for now.
Okay.
And I got a big one here too. I'm Doug and Roman. Define nano, micro, and smart grid interoperability concept. A nano grid is just around the home. I don't know if that's a common term yet, but
Is that a planning thing?
That goes under a smart or a grid monitor. The same thing as grid modernization and
system planning.
Yep.
Or
Okay.
system planning.
Great.
And then one more, I got defined communication, storage, smart charging, and integration technologies. That's maybe planning.
Okay, so Eric and I will do our best to fit the Post-its that you don't see into these categories. And we'll give you a homework assignment around naming so we can get through that quickly at the next meeting. Good job, everyone. This, I know it's exhausting to do this process, but I think it results in a good product that is going to help you move forward. So, Lisa, I'm going to turn it back to you. Is it public comment now, or?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you, Julie.
Welcome.
Before we move off of this, just again, huge kudos to everybody for participating, but a huge thank you to Eric and Julie for organizing us. I think that, you know, hopefully you all are starting to see how these pieces come together. I certainly am after the last, 60 minutes, 90 minutes. So thanks for the time and energy. All right, so we're transitioning over to our public comment component of the meeting here today. So I'm going to say, first of all, thanks to those of you for the public who participated with us all along, because I know we've had a lot of folks on and listening, and you can see, I suspect you've joined us before, many of you have, but if you haven't, you can see the great amount of detail that this task force has been going into over the last 17 meetings, and the collected expertise that is a component of what we're pulling together to build the recommendations to deliver to the governor. So really appreciate all this work. So I'm just going to remind folks, actually, Kimber, can you put the slide up on how to give public comment? Hopefully she's there. And I'm going to just keep talking while hopefully she's putting it up. So our format for public comment is feel free to raise your hand as a starting point. I think we have a name or two submitted, so we'll start there. If you may also email our email box if you want to notify us that way. And then at the end, we'll just see if there's anybody who's phoned in who wants to give us public comment. Just a couple of reminders up front. Of course, we're interested in who you are and where you're talking to us from. We also keep our public comment here to 3 minutes. You're always welcome to come back and join us again, but just 3 minutes per shot. Thank you, Kimber, for putting that up for us. And my final reminder is that this is not an opportunity to question task force members, but an opportunity to give us additional input or insights about things that you think we need to be hearing about. If you are not interested in giving verbal public comment, we do also really appreciate emails that get shared out with the entire task force. And so with that, I should have pulled my notes up a moment ago. 1 second. I know we've got one submitted. Melissa Davis from New Power Tour is going to be our first public comment for today. And I'm going to get my little timer out here and ready to go. And Melissa, if you would like to unmute yourself, I'm going to give you 3 minutes on the clock. Do we have Melissa?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. Melissa, take it away.
All right, thanks so much. I just started my timer as well. Melissa Davis, Managing Director from New Power Tour, and I'm not zooming in, I'm Microsoft teaming in from Hancock. So I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce the work that our nonprofit has been doing to the members of the UP Energy Task Force, and also to start out by thanking you so much, thanking Eagle and the UP Energy Task Force for taking a close look at our energy situation and the circumstances. I am grateful and really glad that you are digging in and drilling down so deeply. And I have to admit, Dave Camp's term, the nanogrid, that really cracked me up today. So, and I particularly enjoyed today's meeting a lot. I thought I'd like to let you know that just to introduce you a little bit to our nonprofit and the work we've been doing. Our mission is to increase the use of renewable water and energy efficient technologies. And we were established in 2006. And one of the first things we got going is volunteer rim joist seals. And a rim joist seal is a winterization tactic that's kind of pretty accessible and can be done with non-skilled labor. So what we did is we've done 106 of them now, and we get together on a Saturday between 10 o'clock in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. And just for funsies, I thought I would show you. This is the spray foam gun. I don't know if you can see me or not, actually. But anyway, we get into people's basements and we seal along the outside rim of their home. and it's a really leaky spot in the house. So we've worked with volunteers all through the area. I think we're up to like 50 teams of different volunteers that have come from Michigan Tech University, faculty and volunteer students, and area high school. A lot of service organizations and businesses and civic groups, and a couple of teams of AmeriCorps did come up to do those. We've also been working with Efficiency United. They've been a great partner. And with them, we've been able to install energy efficient HVAC equipment into, I think you might like some numbers. We did 66 heat pump water heaters, replacing electric water heaters, and 16 furnaces and boilers, and 80 refrigerators, and 6,000 LEDs. So we've been kind of doing the ground game. We've been doing the micro level where you're way up at the macro. On the energy side, 16 seconds. We've organized several reasonably well-attended multiple events. And you know what I'll do? I'll just show up at the next meeting and take off from here.
That'd be great, Melissa. And anything you want to submit over email, we're also happy to make sure it gets to task force members. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Next, I've got Mike Booza. Mike, I'm not sure if I said your last name correctly. You can correct me. Feel free to come on off of mute, and you've got 3 minutes.
You did pronounce my name correctly. You did very well. Thank you for allowing me to talk. And one thing I would like to commend this task force for there's so much discourse these days amongst public officials, and civility of this group is wonderful to see. So thank you for that. Also, I would like to talk about Rooftop Solar for a minute. Right now, this task force probably aware that we're kind of in the UP and a lot of other areas has bumped up against the limits that's legally allowed at this point. And the UP in particular seems to be, residents in the UP seems to be very interested in developing the rooftop solar. So anything you can do to encourage that, the expansion of that, it would be greatly appreciated. Also, I think microgrids could, they've talked about reliability of the grid, and I think the establishing microgrids would greatly improve the reliability of the grid. However, and I'm sure the power companies are as wincing at this comment, it may require that the power companies develop a different business model to accommodate these sorts of things. And the last thing I want to comment is there is one of the iron mines in the UP is developed into a solar farm. And I think that's a wonderful idea. Most people are accepting those kind of lands that are brownfields and those sorts of things of being developed into solar farms. So right now, this is, I know, kind of an experiment by the DNR, but if this move from an experimental to more of a mainstream sort of thing, I think it'd be wonderful. So thank you for allowing me to speak.
Great. Thank you, Mike. That's actually all I've got right now. So let's see if we have other folks. I'm going to look to Kimber and see if Kimber had any other requests for public comment come in through her.
Hi, Liesl. We don't accept Rosemary Greer just sent a message, so
great.
Perhaps that's the one.
That'd be fine. Rosemary, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Great. Rosemary, 3 minutes. The floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, I really want to commend Julie for her whiteboard and sticky note endeavor, because it was an excellent exercise in generating and organizing all of your wonderful ideas that the task force has come up with. And to the guest speaker just prior to me, he mentioned civility. I'd also like to include humor. I think everyone's humor goes a long way in all of this. So some of the things that stood out to me as you were generating all of your ideas is using small scale renewables. And I believe Mike Fermansky talked about that, because that seems to be a realistic perspective that a lot of people, at least locally, take into account when they think about generating alternatives, to our energy. And a small scale seems a lot more user-friendly and also seems to be more widely accepted.
And also the concept of using brownfield areas as probable sites for especially solar, because these are already sites that have been disturbed from mining or other industrial activity. And then the other thing that stood out in my mind too is the fact that education really needs to be the priority, in all of this, not just for individuals in the community, but also for our political leaders, because it seems to be there's a lot of pushback with many community, with our local politicians and otherwise. And perhaps it's a lack of education or a lack of being open-minded about what's happening for our future. So I think that's a really important aspect to focus on too. And the other piece is involving the community early on with any kind of proposed energy systems, because the buy-in has to come early on. The community has to feel like they're part of it. So I think that's really an important piece, that transparency is part of this. And that is what I would like to say right now. I think this was an excellent idea in generating activity, and it was helpful for the viewer to see how all of this comes together. So thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Rosemary. Yeah, there are some good outcomes of COVID, like our more increased use of virtual meetings. When we've got broadband, it allows people to really be engaged. So we appreciate that.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm seeing that Horst Schmidt raised his hand. Horst, were you interested in making comments today?
Yes, I am. Can you understand me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Horst. So I'm going to reset my timer, and you got 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have been in the UPEC area, I've been talking about the recent solar and wind projects that are coming to the UP, and I see a pattern whereby it seems that we have these companies that are 1, 2, 3 years old and don't seem to have anything except one person running it, and then there seems to be some kind of finance operation behind them. And in the case of Marquette, it seems like they're rushing to get this thing in, and they're not aware that there are problems with possibly not having the right to own the land or to lease the land. There's questioned what is going to happen with the solar panels and the installation at the end of the cycle, which would probably be about 20 years, because you're talking about pulling out all the concrete piers and taking down the whole assembly. So that can add up to large money. But the main thing is, this is just the start of the dropping of the old panels for new panels, and then this just goes on interminably. So I'm aware that Eagle is working on materials management, and I'm hoping that some of that can be disseminated to the communities. So thank you for your time.
Great, thank you for your comments, Horst. All right, I don't know why I'm not seeing people raising their hands, but people are texting me that now Rich Vanderveen's raised his hand. So I apologize, folks, that I'm not seeing them directly, and thanks for sharing them with me. So Rich, are you interested in giving comment today?
If I may, Ms. Chairman.
Of course. I'm going to reset my timer, and the floor is yours, sir.
I concur with everyone who said civility is the name of the game. I think there's going to be a potential January 14th discussion about community support and earning the trust and confidence of local communities in setting the stage for renewables, storage, broadband. All these things take education, engagement, and involvement. This group is doing a great job of again, civilly, thoughtfully laying out a possible future. I think, Melissa, perhaps Elise, Vance, and others will join me in that January 14th event. You'll hear more about that. Second, I totally agree with the previous speakers about the need for best practices, deep financing, thoughtful development of large projects. But the hope would be that with 19 utilities and 300,000 people. This group can reset the clock about how we go forward. There's a group called Invest UP that's very involved in thinking through big picture. I'm lucky to chair the right place, this smart zone here in Marquette, and we're seeing renewables as a platform for future entrepreneurial growth. So thank you very much this morning for allowing me to speak, and continue the good work you're doing. Look forward to working with all of you. And if I can ever be a resource, please let me know. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Rich. It's nice to see you. All right. Do we have others who are interested in giving public comment today? All right. Hopefully I didn't miss any hands. I don't see anything in the chat. Kimber, I'm just going to ask if you had anything else that came in through email or in any other way.
No, I don't have anyone else requesting.
All right. Well, let me look and see how many folks we've got on the phone in case there's anybody there. Is anyone on the phone who's interested in giving public comment today? We don't have a lot of people on the phone today. That's interesting. Okay, well, with that, we're going to give you 18 minutes back, but it was a really good deep thinking process today, so I feel like you deserve those 18 minutes back. So thanks again, everybody. Great meeting. Appreciate the work of public sector to get us all organized. Look forward to talking to everybody soon. And I guess since it's December 15th, I should remember to say happy holidays. Hope everyone gets a chance to relax a little bit over the next few weeks. Please send any snow that you do not need in my direction, or let me know where it is so that I can seek it out myself. Thanks, everybody. See you in 2021.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Happy holidays.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.